This is Radio TV Phono Nut, and I recently showed you a late 60s, early 70s El Cheapo Pencrest clock radio, and someone made the comment that, well, it's a 40-year-old radio. Do you think any modern radio will be working in 40 years? Well, let me just clarify. It was a cheap radio for 1970, and no, I don't believe a modern radio will likely be working in 40 years. Most of them are doing good in the last 6 months. And what we have here today is what I believe to be a end-of-the-line tube radio for GE. As you can see, this is a clock radio, and it's a very plain Jane beat-up clock radio at that. It was on eBay for a cheap buy-it-now price, and I went ahead and got it. And when I first saw the picture of it, I thought it was a solid-state set, because I've seen some solid-state GEs that look very similar. For the exception of the solid-state ones, the clock face took up this whole side here. As you can see, this one is just a round circle with a clear layer of thin plastic over the clock. That sounds like something GE would do. However, when they showed a picture of the back of the set, I knew it was a tube set because of the interlock. The solid-state ones had a hardwired power cord. Our model tag is missing, but fortunately the 4-digit date code is still there, and that's 5737, I believe, and the second digit denotes the year, so 7, that would be 1967. And as you can see, the cabinet's cracked. They conveniently forgot to show a picture of that in the listing, but for no more than I paid for it, I'm not going to complain. And we have some chips here in the cabinet. Usually when I buy radios, especially off of eBay, I'm a stickler for cosmetic details, but since this one's such an oddball, I've actually never seen this particular model. And since it's a last gasp model, I decided to go ahead and get it. Okay, let's plug it in and see what happens. And as you can hear, it plays, so there's really not going to be much to do to this, if anything.
Give him a call. Send him some cookies. Let's think like Cecil Newton, Cam's dad,
could be work-related. Under the law.
Thought I heard a little microphonics going on there. Okay, so no distant stations, but it brings in the local ones pretty good. And here's the chassis, as you can see, just a basic 5-tube chassis on a printed circuit board. We have our Japanese electrolytic capacitor there. Our output transformer looks Japanese as well. This board basically looks just like the ones used in the older GE clock radios in the older style cabinet. And I'm sure by 1967 GE had pretty much gone all solid state for the most part, but they probably had billions of these boards left over, so in order to use up remaining inventory and to produce an economy clock radio, they probably made one last batch of radios that use this particular tube chassis. And I'm sure this radio wasn't very expensive when new. I mean, it only has a off-on button and a wake to music setting. There's no buzzer alarm or no snooze button or no illuminated dial or anything like that. It's just a plain Jane clock radio that probably cost $9.95 maybe. Here's a better look at the chassis. This, of course, is our ferrite loop stick antenna, our tuning condenser, 12BE6 oscillator and mixer tube, our first IF transformer, our 12BA6 IF amplifier tube, which feeds into the second IF transformer, which feeds into the 12AV6, detector and first audio amplifier tube, which feeds into the 50C5 audio output tube, which feeds into the audio output transformer, which goes to the speaker. And this tube here is our 35W4 rectifier that changes the incoming AC to DC voltage if the circuit wants to see. This is our dual section filter capacitor that's indeed Japanese and looks to have a 1967 date code on it. Yeah, sometimes I have to wonder what people do to these radios to bust up the cabinets. Since this is a clock radio, there's a couple of theories. Number one, somebody got extremely PO'd because they got woke up in the morning by it and they slung it across the room, or people were possibly in the process of creating a child and got a little too carried away and the radio hit the floor. But anyway, there you go. Nothing really to repair here because it works already. But here's a look at a 1967 GE tube clock radio.